I got Shorty. I got Shorty. I got Shorty, guys. I mean, yeah, like that. Oh yeah, it shows the 9 point. Alright, so Shorty had just come out of the Crotan 2000 whitetail formula. I'm cold water rinsing him. Cold water rinsing his cape. And then after this, I'll gear up to neutralize him. Alright, so Shorty's been cold water rinsed right out of the tan. And a quick note here, you must always use a plastic bin, a plastic container for using these chemicals that you tan your deer capes with. So now I'm getting ready to neutralize him. After pulling the deer capes out of the tan, cold water rinsing, they have to be neutralized with baking soda.
Okay, well then I might be focusing on that. But if they're on the farm crops or the food plots, what I'm doing is I'm getting exposed to that clusters of cover where you're going to find the scrapes, where you're going to find the rubs in number. And usually you can connect the dots. Greg Miller made a living on this as far as rub lines go. You connect the dots. You don't just look for the sign, oh my gosh, here's a scrape, I'm going to hammer stand up here. No. Here's a scrape. You know, define it however you want. There's a lot of guys out there on the internet that want to tell you this is a primary scrape, this is a communal scrape. I honestly, you dropped the Kleenex on the sidewalk. Oh, there he was here, and oh, he was over there, and he was over there. And now I'm looking, is I get into my spot 90 minutes before perspective. I'm pressured.
So it's very important to pay attention to the instructions. Read the instructions very carefully when tanning a deer cape. The volumes must be exact. Like the amount of Crotan you use to the amount of water and salt you use has to be exact, right to the exact volume. And when neutralizing the deer cape after cold water rinsing them, after pulling them out of the tan, cold water rinsing and neutralizing them with sodium bicarbonate or baking soda. You must use the right volume of water to the right volume of baking soda or sodium bicarbonate. Oh, it's also very important that you shampoo the deer capes or any cape that you tan for that matter. I like to use Dawn dish soap. Dawn is great for that. So what you're not seeing here, what I'm not showing you for the sake of the length of this video, is I've rinsed the cape, wrung it out, and I took the cape out, put it in a clean tote, clean dry tote, and then dumped the water out, and then put the cape back in the tote and soaked them up with Dawn and re-rinsed them. I continued to rinse him, wring him out, put him in a dry, clean tote, dumped the water out, and re-rinsed until I got all the soap out of the hair and off the leather side of the deer cape. Okay, so now I'm going to let Shorty drip dry for a couple hours. And I'll keep checking on him and wringing him out, and running my hands down the cape and wringing to bring all the water to the bottom end of the cape, to wring out all the water, excess water that I can, before I go on to the shaving process. Alright, so just because you pulled your deer cape out of the tan, cold water rinsed him, shampooed him, doesn't mean he's ready for mounting yet. He's not ready to be test fitted on a mannequin, permanently mounted. As you see, the leather on this cape still has a lot of frills and pills and a lot of brown and pink. It's vitally important that you shave the leather side of your capes, of all capes that you tan. You must thin the leather. Thin them right down to almost to the hair follicles. Get the leather as thin as possible so that you'll get the most stretch, the most pliability out of that cape, so that he'll fit really good on the mannequin. So here I'm showing you that I turned the lips. I turned the ears, eyes, nose, and lips. That means shaving them inside out, so you can scrape away all the meat and fat and membrane. And then here I'm going to clean all this up. It doesn't look that good now, but I'm going to be spending a few hours, quite a few hours actually, shaving this leather and cleaning it up and trimming around the lips, trimming the nose skin and around the ear skin, and shaving that leather down almost to the hair follicles to make this leather look clean and make it thin so it'll stretch real good, so it'll fit good on the mannequin. Okay, so here's the nostril skin. See those things sticking out? That's the nose skin. That has to be thinned and trimmed down. The lips have to be trimmed. Here's the chin of the deer cape. You can see the follicles of the whiskers. Here's the eyes turned inside out, and I need to trim the skin around the eyes, lips, and nostrils and ears. And obviously you see here the skin side, the leather needs to be thinned and trimmed and cleaned up so it'll get really good stretch and so it'll fit good on the mannequin.
Let's go. So this is my buck I shot this year, my 202-pound 9-point buck. This is his cape. Getting him ready for mounting. I already did the face. I turned the eyes, nose, ears, and lips. Turned and split them and thinned the layer. I thinned the leather already around the neck and face. So the leather's all thinned and that area of the face part's ready for mounting. But we gotta shave the leather on the body, the neck and body. There. Works real good. Yeah, not too shabby. Now you don't want to like get too ahead of yourself and kind of get scatterbrained, get all over places. Always a good idea to do a strip, like like maybe a 6-inch strip. Go to an end point and then move over, do another 6-inch strip to that same line, and just keep moving the cape. See, I got all this up here, all this cape to thin, all this leather. So this was tanned in the Crotan 2000 whitetail formula, Crotan special whitetail formula, Crotan. It was tanned in this. See, you can see all that brown, that was little bits, pieces of membrane, and that wasn't meat though, that was just blood. That brown was just stained from blood stain. It's been tanned, but see when you thin the leather, see the bluing? When you see the blue, that's the hair follicles of the deer hair on the other side. That's how you know you got it thin enough. You want to shave the leather down until you see that like light bluish, grayish tan color. Yeah, and that bluing that you see is it's the hair follicles, the tips of the hair on the other side of the leather. Let's keep shaving. So we just shave her down. You're going to make little nicks and holes like this in your leather. You just sew those up before mounting. You got some nicks in the face area. You can super glue as a taxidermist's best friend. Dryer sheets and super glue with like nicks and holes in the ears. You can, and actually any nicks and holes around the face area, lip line, and ear area. In some cases, even maybe around the neck. You can cut a little piece of dryer sheet that matches the hole, that fits over the hole, and press that dryer sheet over the hole and put a couple drops of super glue. And that dryer sheet looks like the skin, same skin tone and texture color as the deer hide. So that's a trick for repairing. But the hole like that, I just do like 2 little stitches with thread and needle. You can sew that up right before mounting. Hair follicles are right. See, here's a hole right here. See the hair? Look how close the hair is to that shave, to where I thinned it. I'm right to the hair. I mean, nice and thin. It's gonna have good stretch. Gonna stretch good over the mannequin. It's gonna also bring out the muscle tone in the final mount. It's gonna show good detail during the finishing process. When I'm doing the finishing touches and at the end of the mounting process. Yeah, the thinner the leather, the better for taxidermists. The easier it is to get over, stretch over a mannequin, the more stretch and pliability you'll get in that leather. And the more detail in the finishing product, the more detail will pop out and show on the final mount.
All right, so way earlier I had cut the skull plate off, the rack, Shorty's rack from the skull, and cleaned that up, boiled it, cleaned that. And then I test fitted them on the mannequin, made sure that the skull plate would fit good. And I filled it with Bondo and mache. This is mache, you see, the roughness. Later on, using critter clay, I'll use the clay to reform, reshape the ear muscles, ear butts, and reform the muscle tone around the head of Shorty. And that will come later. Now, what you can't see here on the skull plate, holding this rack on the mannequin, are 3 screws, 3 3-inch screws screwed through the bone into the plywood that's embedded in the mannequin. So he's secured with 3 screws, Bondo and mache, and then later on critter clay will be used to reform and reshape the muscle tone around the ears and the head. Okay, so the majority of the work goes into prepping your mannequin. Probably 70 to 80% of the work you put into mounting a deer, or bear, whatever you're going to mount, moose, doesn't matter. The majority of that work goes into the mannequin and prepping the mannequin for the right fit. You're going to test fit it, put the cape on it, test fit it, figure out what parts of the mannequin you need to manipulate, change. You've got to rough it. You got to bring out, if you want to bring out the muscle tone in the finished product, then you got to do some work with your Dremel tool or planers and sandpaper or whatever to help the muscle tone pop out. I use a screwdriver and Dremel tool to prep the lip line around the eyes for later on tucking in the leather when actually mounting the cape. So the majority of the work really goes into prepping your mannequins. Alright, so like I mentioned earlier in this video, I said that the lip line around the nostrils and eyes and ears has to be trimmed up. The leather must be shaved down and cleaned so it'll get good stretch. So here I use scissors to trim any excess skin or anything I don't need. And when I go to mount this cape, whatever I don't need for tucking in to the mannequin, I'll trim away with scissors and a scalpel. And then obviously here I'm sewing up any nicks I made in the leather. When rough fleshing these capes before tanning, it's very common for the knife blade to slip or to cut in too deep and cut holes and nicks all through the cape. And so right before mounting the cape on the mannequin, I must go through and sew all the holes. In some cases, I might have to use pieces of dryer sheet. I'll cut the holes. I'll mesh them together, make them each edge of the hole flush. Then I'll cut a piece of dryer sheet, lay over it, and put a couple dabs of super glue. In some parts of the cape, I have to use that method for sealing up the holes, especially on the ears. If I have any holes in the ears, I'll use the dryer sheet super glue method. Alright, so here's the clay I use. It's the critter clay. I order it from Taxidermy Supply. It's like the Mackenzie Taxidermy Supply. This critter clay, it has a longer dry time. Stays moist. It's a really smooth, easy to work with clay. It doesn't dry as quickly. It doesn't crack when it dries. It's a really good clay. So here I've started the clay work around the eyes. It's not final. I'm very particular and I pay attention to detail. There's a lot that goes into the clay work around the eyes and around the antlers and on the head and around the nose and lip line. A lot of clay work. Like I said, like I mentioned earlier, the majority of the work really goes into prepping the mannequin. It's more like 90% of the work for when mounting an animal. 80-90% of the work goes into prepping that mannequin. Alright, so there you saw the clay work. That clay work isn't the same for all mannequins. I might add a little more clay or a little less to a mannequin. It all depends on what I want the finished product to look like. Here's the lip, the eye skin trimmed down. It might be trimmed a little more. Look, the nose skin is too long. That has to be trimmed and cleaned up before tucking in the nostrils. So there's still some cleanup to do around the leather around the eyes, nostrils, and lips before tucking them in. There's a trick I do to the ears that I didn't show in the video, didn't mention, but I'm going to keep it a secret. Yeah, there's something I do, a specialty trick that I do to the ear liners and to the ears before putting in the ear liners. And obviously I have to add the ear muscles with critter clay. The ear butts and ear muscles has to be reshaped and formed with that critter clay. Here's his chest and his shoulders and armpits. He's pinned down and starting to dry. What I didn't include in this video and what you're not going to see is me putting on the hide paste to the mannequin. So right before I put Shorty's cape over the mannequin, I rubbed hide paste all over that mannequin. The hide paste helps draw in the leather in tight and hold the leather tight to the mannequin. It helps it dry real good. It helps suck in that cape so that you'll get the nice muscle tone and shape on the finishing product. Yeah, and so later on, after Shorty's all dry, I have to do the finishing work. That's still quite a bit of work, a few hours of work. I have to do some epoxy work around the eyes, lips, and nostrils, do the airbrushing and the grooming, but that won't be until he's all dried up. So there's still a lot of work to do here. Obviously, I got to sew up the backside, and there'll be a lot of epoxy work and some airbrushing to finalize the nose pad and the eyes and lip line to make him look real good, and then obviously the grooming of him. But that will all come after he's finished being mounted and being pinned up, and after he's dry. Then I'll go into the epoxy work and the airbrushing. Alright, so here you see the ear butts or ear muscles formed. They're not final. During the couple weeks of drying, you can manipulate these ears in any way you want. You can turn the ears how you want. You can keep forming the ear muscle. That's just clay. The clay can be manipulated and pushed and formed. And I don't have the backside sewed up completely, so I can get in there with my fingers and push the clay more forward or down. And I can scrunch in the ear muscles a little more. So the ears aren't final. So you still have a few days to decide on how you want your ears turned. If you want them facing forward, your ears back, however you want your ears manipulated, you can form them in any way, shape, or form because they're just stuck in clay. Yeah. So, but I'm just showing you the rough draft. Alright, so I chose a pedestal style mannequin for mounting Shorty. It shows more shoulder, more leg, and it has a flat backside that you can add fabric to. In this case, I chose like an American flag, home of the free, home of the brave type of fabric to put on the back part of this pedestal style mount. And why I chose this pedestal style mount is because later on I could do a habitat display, like set up a fake tree trunk with branches, and I could have him mounted in such a way to have him looking like he's rubbing a tree. I could have him set up in the corner of my office rubbing a tree. Because that's the luxury of a pedestal style mount. They can be turned in any way you want. They can be rotated and turned. And so see here I'm tucking in the fabric. This will be finished off with some yarn or rope on the one edge. Yeah, so here's the fabric all tucked in and the excess cut away. It's all just a rough draft here. The leather will have to be folded over, and the hair side of that part of the cape that's going to be folded over will have to be stapled down.